Colonel Rob Maness has a lifelong record of providing dedicated service to this nation. Having worked his way up from the enlisted ranks to full colonel, he served our country for more than 32 years. He has served as a bomber squadron commander, bomb disposal technician, Joint Chiefs of Staff Operations Officer, assisted the National Security Team with the campaign plan for the global war on terrorism. He authored the first theater nuclear war plan and served as the Vice Commander of America's largest airborne intelligence wing. Colonel Rob Maness is a true American hero. This is Rob Maness Live.
All right, so Tom Teague is a local cattle farmer, and Chris Johnson is a fish guy, right? All up in the mountains, and they've seen a lot. Tom, why don't you start with you, your experience on the farm, what happened?
Yeah, so we had, I live in the Cane Creek area, and we had, I think, the morning of the Friday, for the next day or so, they pulled out 40 bodies from just kind of a little bit east of me. And they had a helicopter landing in my friend's lawn with these bodies that had washed down from sort of the Girton area. Total devastation. Everything picked up. The Cane Creek's a relatively small creek, and it swelled up to 10, 12 times its normal size, and it just washed everything kind of along the bank, double wide trailers, cars, everything down. And the disappointing thing for us was we didn't see any. The only helicopters we saw flying for the first 2-3 days were private. We lived not far away from the airport. There was just a muted response. And I was talking to somebody today, and it took 4 days for the military to get here. And at that stage, how many people didn't have their medicine? How many people didn't have insulin, oxygen, the things, and how many people died as a result of that? And the outpouring of people here has just been absolutely incredible. People coming from out of state. I saw a guy from Pennsylvania who had made 2 trips. Chris has been driving back and forth to Wilmington to get supplies. It's an amazing humanitarian effort, but it's all regular people doing it out of just kindness. There's really nothing going on in terms of government, and you can see here. It's really disappointing.
So Chris, you were involved in a lot of spotting some of the early deaths. Tell us what you experienced.
We came in.
Speak up there.
The storm hit Thursday night, early Friday morning. We weren't able to get in here till I guess it was early Monday when the water receded, and as they said, you could find bodies anywhere around the river, and there was no guidance. It was kind of every man for himself. It felt like definitely a huge sense of community, but no one really knew where to begin. I felt, really overwhelming. There's enough struggle already, and I feel they need more help. That's where we kind of stepped in. I live over in Brevard. We didn't get the damage that they did over here. It's about 30 miles or so away. So we kind of jumped in and started helping, and we've seen a lot more of that.
America's government cares for illegals and foreign wars, but fights its own citizens. Welcome back to More War Monday here on the Rob Maness Show, and we're live on Worldview Tube and X-Spaces simulcast. Today is October 7th, the 1-year anniversary since the Jewish people faced atrocities not seen since the days of Nazi Germany. We face a world literally at the brink of another world war, while American citizens are being left to die in the epic disaster in western North Carolina, and our government is telling us they've spent all the money on illegal aliens and foreign wars. We remember and pray for those who died last year and the hostages taken that day who remain captive. Our government continues its weakness and lack of leadership here at home. Our own people are dying. I'll say it again. Many of them still without help, except that help brought by our fellow citizens. And meanwhile, We discover that the failing war in Ukraine has absorbed resources from us like utility transformers in a quest to prop that country up that is fruitless and causing more instability at home and around the world instead of seeking a peaceful solution. Clueless Joe Biden and word salad Kamala have even gone so far as to first say to Israel not to attack Iran's nuclear facilities, the greatest risk to all of us, according to President Trump. Just the other day, he said it, and it's true. But now Biden's saying not to even attack Iran's primary funding source, its oil production and distribution capabilities. Well, L. Todd Wood, who you just saw interviewing those gentlemen in the first video, joins us today to discuss all of this. He's a former special operations pilot, helicopter pilot, and is currently CEO of CD Media. His mission is to report the truth, as America's free press ought to be doing, to protect our way of life. And they're not. So Todd, along with a lot of the rest of us, is stepping into the breach. Todd, welcome back to the Rob Maness Show.
Rob, thanks for having me on. Always love the show. Appreciate it. Appreciate the opportunity.
Yeah, appreciate you guys doing your shows on CD Media, because I like to use cold open clips, and that was perfect for this, man. So that interview with Matt, and I think his name was Chris, at Swannanoa, North Carolina, was done what, Sunday or Saturday?
Yesterday.
Saturday? Yesterday. Okay, so just yesterday. It's within 24 hours. What was your, I don't know how much traveling around you got to do in the area. But what's your overall impression? And I'm going to ask a whole series of questions because there's a lot of information out there flowing around, and I want to talk to somebody that's seen it.
So it's pretty horrific here, and the story is just starting to come out. We broke a story today that this is going to be bigger than 9/11. There are, in Swannanoa, we have information that there are approximately 2,000 deaths, and that's just one town. It's the most accessible town. They were still pulling bodies out of the water Sunday when we drove through and did our reporting there. We have had people on the ground there, so we know what's going on. There was no help for 4 days from the military, according to our people on the ground. Humans can last 3 or 4 days without water, and then they can't. So there's no medical facilities. There's no water buffaloes for fresh water. There's no supplies being distributed by FEMA. It's all local people banding together and taking in donations from literally all over the country. And also, so that's just one area. We have information we just released also that there's approximately 1,500 dead up in Chimney Creek area on Lake Lure, which was completely wiped out by the mudslides and the flooding. And these are only 2 communities. So we're here on the ground. CDM has been here for several days, and no one is here reporting the truth. There's no news organizations that I can find here, at least not at where we have been. A lot of these towns are closed off up in the mountains, and FEMA has prevented anyone coming in. And we think that's not to save lives, but to not let them see the horrendous death counts.
Yeah, let's talk about the bodies. I mean, I've seen stories, thousands of people. Mike Flynn, General Flynn, just put one out and said over 1,000 people. It wasn't an estimate. It was put out as fact. Where's this information coming from, Todd? Because the government's reporting 230 plus, I think, as of this morning.
We have sources. We have
spots in the trees still today, even.
Yeah, we have sources inside some of the law enforcement areas who are reporting this to us as to what they're seeing as far as numbers. I can't give out names or areas, but that's what we're hearing from sources who would know the information. And again, they don't want this information out. Obviously, if you have thousands of people dead, and then think of all the deaths that could have been prevented if aid got here quickly. right? I mean, we're dropping pallets of food into Gaza, but we couldn't drop pallets of water into barricaded areas up in the mountains, or food or medical supplies or PJs or, whatever needed to get in there to start giving these people medical care. And think of the lives that could have been saved if that was done immediately. And yes, Sunday was day 9 when we were on the ground in Swannanoa. I saw 2 army trucks drive through, uh, and there's just nobody there. And then you look at Burns Creek and other areas where they're completely blocked off. There's a video flying around of I think it's a FEMA helicopter, but it's unmarked, blowing away the tents of people, volunteers who are trying to bring in food, hovering over the food collection areas, blowing away the supplies. I mean, why would you do that? I was a helicopter pilot. There's no rational reason to do that. And, if you were looking for a place to land, you would scout it out, and you would not do what they did in that behavior. I don't have an explanation for it other than to try to, cause damage to the food distribution, aid distribution efforts by civilians. It's really mind-boggling, Rob, what we're living through right now.
Yeah, I mean, it's I don't write these headlines just creating them, that our government appears to be fighting our own people while we're caring for illegals and sending billions and not just billions of dollars, but supplies to foreign countries and foreign nationals. And I mean, what Blinken put out yesterday, $157 million to southern Lebanon for humanitarian assistance. And we've got 3 states, at least, Georgia, East Tennessee, and Western North Carolina, Northern Georgia, that have fatalities. People are dying. People are not getting their medications. And it's private helicopters, in large part, and fixed wing aircraft coming in from charities and those kind of things. It blows me away that this continues. I mean, what are we at? Day 10 now? We're at day 10 today. And I started seeing National Guard posts saying, hey, we've got helicopters and this many troops and all that stuff, blah, 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 this morning, really consistently for the first time about this operation. Are you guys seeing anything? I mean, you mentioned the 2 Army trucks, but are you seeing Blackhawks flying, Chinooks? I've seen videos.
I saw 1 Chinook Sunday, but as of today, there are routine flights where I am in Fletcher, which is near Asheville. There are Chinooks overhead in a pattern, not a pattern, but a flight path going back and forth. So I don't know if they're bringing bodies out or if they're bringing food or whatever. But, I know that there's been at least 800 body bags ordered in the Chimney Rock area, and they keep ordering more. And this is where the Lake Lure destruction happened. You've seen pictures of the lake. It's not even a lake. It's just the town is gone. It's floating in the lake, literally. So pieces of it.
Yeah.
It's an iconic photo that's being spread around the net as we speak.
Yeah, and that's where the first video of a helicopter pilot, the guy that his son was his co-pilot, went up the mountain to extract a couple, brought the wife down, and then some fire chief at the airport there said, "You're not going to do this anymore. You're going to have to leave those people there. I'm going to have you arrested if you do it." Right? I mean, that Lake Lurie, is that how you pronounce it? I mean, it's just so. I mean, I don't doubt that guy. But we hear more than one of those stories. Are you hearing that from folks you're interviewing and making contact with too, that this is still going on?
Yes. I mean, again, there may be good reasons for roads or FEMA blocking off areas, but we're hearing that people just can't get to certain areas, not because the road's out, or at least where they could drive to a point where FEMA is blocking any further movement. There are reports of, runways being shut down at airports and not allowing aid and other types of deliveries to be, this is a huge process, right? You got to realize there are thousands of people in need, And that's a lot of logistical material that needs to be moved. And the problem is what I'm hearing now is being moved to the wrong spots where they already have enough aid and it's not getting it all to the places where they need aid. So what is FEMA supposed to do? You would think that would be a government function to allocate aid and manage the logistics of all this. But you've literally, Sunday, we spent hours in Swannanoa, and you've got truckloads of aid coming from churches from all around, U-Haul trailers full with guys just unloading in the parking lots of these destroyed buildings saying, where do we put it? And everybody's, you've got volunteers putting up tables, trying to take orders from different areas around who needs what. It's just the lack of coordination is amazing, but the lack or the spirit and the determination and the persistence of the people in trying to help their own is very heartwarming. I didn't hear any black-pilled people. Everybody was just, what do we do? How do we do it? Where does this need to go? Let's unload this truck. Let's sort this out. Where does this water go? Let's separate this over here. Put the gasoline over here. I mean, it was guys in dune buggies and trucks and trailers, and just it's an amazing thing to watch. But then you see the government trying to shut it down. It's really disturbing.
It is. Well, we got to take a break. When we come back, though, I want to continue this conversation about that, Todd, and just get more of these facts out because we've heard some horrendous stories, and haven't had a chance to talk to somebody that's been on the ground, that's talked to people and seen it firsthand. So we'll be right back on the Rob Maness Show here at Worldview Tube.
Hello, I'm Brandon House. Melissa and I have been taking Bella Grace, this powerful elixir, since last fall, 2023. The results have been amazing. My hands would crack and bleed, deep cuts and cracks every winter for years. No matter what we did, we couldn't get them to stop cracking and bleeding. This year, I took Bella Grace, no cracking, no bleeding. My acid reflux, gone. Haven't had to take a Pepsid. My hair growth, the last 2 times I had my hair cut, the lady had to use thinning shears on my hair. That's amazing. We've also received incredible feedback from you, our listening audience, and the impact it's had for you. This is loaded with astaxanthin. That's a powerful antioxidant. Collagen, but top grade collagen. Studies show 95% of it is being absorbed in the body because of the way they develop it. Then we have something called cat's claw. That's an anti-inflammatory from a vine in Peru. It's the bark, and it's an anti-inflammatory. There are about 80 clinical trials on Bella Grace. Please get a subscription now and save. MelissaHouseBG.com.
Why does the Biden-Harris administration always seem to help American taxpayers last?
We've also authorized one-time payments of $700 per household to folks who've been displaced.
FEMA providing $750 for folks who need immediate needs being met, such as food, baby formula, and the
I do want to ask you if you feel you have the resources you need right now.
We most certainly do, and we are dedicating those resources.
We do not have the funds to make it through the season.
Is that FEMA's got no money to help anybody in our country.
The Biden-Harris administration spent over $1 billion from a FEMA program on services for migrants.
City is expanding its debit card program for migrant families.
This will be the new first destination for the single male migrants, complete with phones, laundry service, even Xboxes.
Millions of dollars not going toward Americans, but going toward processing people who are in this country illegally.
Proud to announce a new $2.4 billion package.
It is $2.6 billion for FY23. $3.6 billion.
An additional $800 million in assistance.
$61 billion military aid package for Ukraine.
The failure of the United States Congress not to support Ukraine is close to criminal neglect.
Welcome back to the Rob Maness Show here on Worldview Tube and our X Spaces simulcast. And we're talking with L. Todd Wood, the CEO of CD Media, Creative Destruction Media today, who's on the ground in Western North Carolina. And it's just a horrendous set of facts, Todd. And now you have like government people paying people on social media to do fight disinformation spaces and say that all these witnesses are lying. Uh, and some people obviously are going to believe it. But you're just telling the facts of what you're seeing, hearing, and everything, right?
Yeah, just in the valley that I'm in, I'm staying with a farmer here, and he said just in this valley that they pulled 40 bodies out of the river. So this is just one valley in western North Carolina in all these mountains. So what happened was not just the flooding, but the immense amount of rain that came down literally washed the sides off mountains. So anybody who had homes up in the mountains, the mudslides that came down and just took everything out and then washed it down into the rivers. So we don't even know. I'm not going to guess, but this is going to be bigger than 9/11. It already is at that level. And I don't know where it's going to end, but there's a lot of death here. And now you got to talk about the lack of coordination and response from the Biden regime. And you walked into Swannanoa, and this was on day 9, and it smelled like death. Those of us who, been in a conflict, that smell, and that's what it was. So just horrific. But like I said, the people are upbeat, and I'm worried about the election. I think we have to have a big push to make sure the people who are impacted by this can vote, can get to vote, and can get their votes cast. Because I think part of that lack of response was a political decision.
Yeah, when you speaking of the election, are you hearing from locals, just average citizens on the ground, that they know what to do yet? I mean, I'm seeing social media posts talking about the legislature's meeting, the Board of Elections is meeting, and they're putting information out. But is it reaching people on the ground where you're at?
I haven't heard. I heard about the SEB meeting today. I don't know. I haven't heard that, but I do know that people are angry. I don't know if that anger is going to turn into actual, consequences of more voting than normal. I would hope so. This is a critical state, and thousands are dead. But if just people who've never voted before voted, you will make that amount up. So we have to get everyone and anyone somehow to the polls.
Yeah, absolutely, absolutely. Is there any truth to the rumors that FEMA is confiscating some of the supplies that have been delivered by private entities? Is that
I have heard
accurate?
that. I've heard that from people, and there's this is all coming from people who have experienced it. So I didn't experience it, but people are saying that yes, they've confiscated supplies, and if you didn't do that, then they applied pressure to you, like this helicopter trying to blow off the tents or whatever. So that's what's being alleged. I haven't seen it with my own eyes.
Yeah. The one of the things I was going to ask you is the governor's under Governor Cooper's under a lot of pressure because it wasn't just the FEMA response that's really been feckless and weak. Apparently, his initial response to this, from what we've reported before in the last few days, and continuing this morning, and he even put out a tweet this morning, I think it was, saying there's a horrendous amount of disinformation out there put out by bad actors and disingenuous people. Don't believe them. So it looks like they're focused, the government people are focused on defending themselves and trying to accuse people like you and me of being bad actors.
Where is he? Does North Carolina have a governor? I mean, I haven't seen him or heard of him. I've been here for days. I've seen nothing. No state, entities operating. Little National Guard. I did see a few guys in the Ingles grocery store. Talk to them. They were deployed from Charlotte in the Swannanoa area. But he's just absent, and that's disturbing to say the least, but also revealing, I think.
Yeah, the lieutenant governor, Mark Robinson, who is running for governor too, I think he's suspended his campaign right away. And I've seen all kinds of video of him flying around. He seems to be all over the place. But his office really doesn't have much power, the way I understand it. But at least he's getting visibility on this stuff, huh?
Yeah, we're going to interview him soon in the next few days. Should be a good interview. And other prominent politicians in this area, we're going to be putting information out. We're committed at CDM to cdm.press for your audience. Please check us out, put us in your daily scan. But we're committed to being here and getting the truth out. We're known for early action, like in Ukraine, like in Israel, like in the vaccines. And this is what we do. We get in early, and we've always been proven right. We don't put out garbage. So, and we don't put out hyperbole. We tell the truth. And if the truth was there's only a few hundred people dead, we'd be saying that. But that's not what we're hearing with our own. We're not, we're believing our lying eyes. So we see it.
I mean, with the numbers being what you guys are seeing and hearing from the locals, there's got to be a pretty large effort to recover those remains and get them stored so they can be identified and those kind of things, right? Are you witnessing, or are you talking to people
I have not heard of that. That's one of the issues, and maybe it exists for certain communities and they're not telling outside those communities. But there's rumors, allegations again, that some of the FEMA operators have been, and this came from a source with an employee in FEMA that was told that they're going to have to just bulldoze the bodies because they can't pull them out and identify them all. So again, that's third party, but those kind of things we're hearing. So it's disturbing that there's not a massive effort to put out a casualty list and tell people where to go to identify remains or whatever.
Yeah, I mean, normally, in my experience, and I'm sure yours too, well, like 9/11 and of these mass casualty events, there's a central point for storing the bodies and collecting them so they can be analyzed, DNA taken, those kind of things, and then have a place for the families, any survivors of the families to come. Do you think that one of the issues it's going to face is that entire families have been wiped out?
Yeah, I'm hearing that, and again, this is third party. I haven't been up there to look myself, but I'm hearing there were essentially no survivors in Chimney Rock. That rescuers that got there days later didn't find anybody alive. So I don't know if they came in, the day of, maybe they would have, or the second day, but day 4 and 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, nobody's alive. So that's one of the hardest hit areas, but I think we're going to be multiple communities like that.
Yeah. So what do you think will happen as more of this is uncovered? I mean, you can't hide 3,000. I mean, 9/11 was what, 3,200 ish, somewhere around there. You can't hide it. What's the point?
Well, this is one of the reasons we're here, is to get this out, because we're right in front of an election that is going to decide the future of the country. And this needs to get out before people need to process it and make their decisions. I mean, do you want a administration in that waited 4 days to come in with the military? I mean, there's units where at Fort Bragg. Where's the 82nd? Is it at Fort Bragg or Fort Campbell?
Fort Bragg.
So they're on 4-hour alert, right?
Yeah.
So where are they? It's not their fault, but I have heard that some troops are moving, but this needs to be a massive effort to come in and help the American people. My fear is they're trying to start a war and they want those resources for the war, which is, again, disturbing.
Yeah, I was in Fayetteville at the town hall with President Trump Friday night. And, on that day, Sam Shoemaker on X and Cynical Publius, both of them were getting reports from Bragg that people had been put on standby, but nothing was really turning for the rescue and recovery effort, aid to civil authorities, which is ridiculous. I mean,
I met.
It's not going to be on a string to go to the Middle East.
I met I was in Swannanoa. There was a group in one of these camps. People are sleeping in tents, by the way, and it's about to get really cold. So that's another huge problem. Second wave of death likely. But I was meeting with this group that was essentially a mountain climbing, mountain rescue organization, civilian one, and they were running operations up into the mountains on their own to try and get to people. People are on horseback, nurses on horseback trying to get into people. So, it's really bad transportation-wise in a lot of these areas. So we need military support, and they're just not getting it as far as I can see.
Well, we got to take another break. When we come back, I want to dive into some of the stuff that we've seen reported about what we've sent to Ukraine, what the status is of the war over there. It's almost gone completely radio silent, Todd, and I know you guys are still reporting from the ground in Eastern Europe over there. So when we come back, we'll have more from L. Todd Wood, do an update on Ukraine, talk some more about the impacts of what we've sent to Ukraine is having on the rescue and recovery efforts in Western North Carolina, Eastern Tennessee, and Northern Georgia, right here with our American citizens. We'll be right back at Worldview 2.
That's why today we're announcing $325 million in new funding to help repair Ukraine's energy and electric grid. And we'll rally additional support from the G7 plus countries when we have a meeting of the Energy Coordination Group in the next couple of weeks. I'm also announcing today $290 million in new humanitarian support to help provide vital services like safe drinking water, food, shelter, medicine.
There it is. Welcome back to the Rob Maness Show here. It's More War Monday, and the American people are having war made on them by our own government by using and sending our scarce resources, and they are scarce in the context of what we're talking about here, to places like Ukraine because of bad decisions and a lack of accurate knowledge and professionalism, and people are dying because of it in Western North Carolina and Eastern Tennessee and Northern Georgia. And there's another hurricane on its way to hit Florida. Milton's out there. Looks like it's going to hit right smack dab in the middle of Tampa, Florida right now. So folks better be getting prepared down there. But how much more of this do we have to put up with? And my guest today is L. Todd Wood. He's on the ground in Western North Carolina. We've been talking about that. And Todd, one of the first things I heard early on was a story about a shortage of utility pole transformers. You know, you don't have a utility grid that goes, a distribution grid that goes to homes and businesses without these transformers that you see hanging on the poles. When the power lines coming to the houses and the buildings and everything from those poles and transformers, and now all of a sudden we have a shortage of those. And the story we hear is that, well, we sent a lot of that stuff to Ukraine. And you just heard Blinken there saying, we're proud. We're going to rebuild their electrical grid.
Yeah, I've heard that some spots will not have power here in Western North Carolina for 7 months or more. Some maybe even over a year. I mean, think about that. I mean, that's third world, not even banana republic. That's like, African desert kind of situation. And what can you say about it? Yeah, they've given all our resources away, and I think they're intentionally doing that. I think a lot of this was to weaken our resolve, strength, ability to function here in the U.S. for whatever they have planned down the road. This is what I worry about, and but on a good sense, I think it's forcing everybody to be prepared for one and start prepping, and the other is to live off their matrix. You have to be able to survive. I tell my team, you got to be able to survive for 3 months, no matter where you are, for your whole family, and really try to unplug from their matrix. Don't support these big corporations that are behind a lot of this. Just don't give them your money. Why are you on Facebook? You shouldn't be. I mean, it's a matrix operation, harvesting all your data, stealing money from you. It's your data that's worth money. Same with Google. Same with a lot of the big carriers. You really have to be smart about where you're sending your money, and that's a weapon we have is economic. We can press that front economically against a lot of these people that are working against us.
Yeah, and the people from that part of the country they're my dad's people. The Manesses come from their Scotch-Irish background. I'm very pleased to see the realities are that even the folks that have lost things, they're all coming together and taking care of each other and welcoming folks that are coming in to help and even providing assistance. And some of these families, I mean, like we said, they're devastated in some cases. Wiped out completely.
I met a woman real quick. I met a woman at a hot dog stand in Swannanoa. She had power at this little hot dog stand, so she was there. She was 60 years old. She'd been the manager of that place for years, and she had her 3 grandkids with her, and they were living in the hot dog stand, and made a shower out back, and she was feeding everybody soup and coffee. So, it was fascinating to watch.
Well, that's the way we are, and you see the term hillbilly used in a disparaging way. My grandparents on both sides, and my mom and dad are all consider themselves hillbillies and rednecks. They taught us to take care of business as we were growing up, no matter what's going on. And your point about being prepared and everything. Are you seeing? I saw a few stories late last night about generators being delivered by private individuals that have bought them and brought them in. That's good news because I was worried about that because some of the older people, it's getting cold. It's starting to get cold up there, and they're going to have some way to heat at least a room that they can sleep in if they got a building left to sleep in or heat their tents. And that kind of thing. Are you seeing that kind of supply coming in yet?
We saw talk of some kerosene heaters, but I haven't seen generators, at least when I was there a couple days ago. I'm sure that private, relief is ramping up. We had guys that were driving 8 hours because you got to realize a lot of the local stores around these impacted areas have been cleaned out, even if they had goods. So you're having people drive 8 hours, load their trailers, drive back, and rinse, repeat, really with their own money. The guy we were with the other day was doing this on his own dime. So, it's amazing to watch.
So, did you guys drive in your route in?
Yes, we didn't have any trouble driving in. Yeah, we didn't have any trouble on the expressways driving in. So, it's open, at least to the Asheville area.
Did you come up from the south or the north?
Came down from the New York area.
Okay.
So came down from the north. Yeah.
That's good news, yeah. Well, on Ukraine, there's been a notable silence in the propaganda media here lately. And when I was prepping for the show today, it's very hard to find any new information from the battlefield in the Kursk area and the Eastern Front. It still looks the way, from the information I could find, like the Ukrainians are still in Kursk, but they're not moving anywhere except for maybe in some small, tiny ways. And the Russians are still grinding it out. I mean, there's no massive taking of ground, but I think last time you were on in August, we were talking about was it the Pskavask, the logistics hub the Russians were about to take. I couldn't find any factual reporting on it, but have they taken those areas yet? And what's the status of what's going on, or is it just pretty much all stalemate now?
Well, they've taken, I think it's Olgadar or Olgahar, I forget the way you pronounce it, in Donbass, which is was a big coup for the Russians because it's a big defense point and a logistical point for the front. Look, the Ukrainians spent their wad going into Kursk, into Russia, with a lot of modern equipment and a lot of mercenaries and a lot of men and a lot of their best forces. And I think the Russians were surprised, but they kind of didn't do anything about it for a while because it wasn't that militarily. So they just let them stay there. But that opened up a lot in Donbass, and I think they've pressed forward. I haven't been watching it as close, but there's talk because of the Volgahar, or however you say it, was because of that collapse, that now there's some, I guess, fracturing in some of the Ukrainian forces, is what our sources may be telling us, that because of that lack of leadership, commands were kind of left to die on the vine, and they just started taking care of themselves. So, and that may be what's going to happen in Ukraine. But I haven't been watching that. We've been much more focused, because I think the outcome in there is pretty evident. It's just a matter of time. But we've been very focused on the Middle East, Israel, that whole conflict, and the war approaching in Iran.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, we're going to talk about that in the last segment. I've got a hand up over in the audience. We still have a live audience, and Shell's our host. Let's go ahead with that question, Shell.
We have Wib, sir.
Thank you, Shell. Thank you, Colonel. Thank you, Mr. Wood. I am currently on standby to head into the Tampa area after Milton passes. Is there anything, any kind of, this will be my first hurricane response. Is there any words of wisdom or pearls of knowledge that you want to give me as I head out, if and when I get the word to get in there?
I would say two things. One, the people need to see you, so be very visible and give them hope and support and let them know you're there. Shake hands, be open to dealing with them and hearing their problems. That made a big impact. Even the small amounts of National Guard that came in Swannanoa were well received, even though they didn't stay very long. And the second is to coordinate the logistic effort. That's the big problem. We got to have some military style coordination of logistical supply chains, where to get what, when, is the most important thing, I would say.
Yeah, when I was director of safety and technical training for the utility operation at Entergy Corporation, I also became the system safety officer for hurricane recovery. And my short experience, I got a lot of experience, but it was over a very short period of time, was that the utilities are very military logistics style oriented as far as deploy, redeploy, getting food, water, and those kind of things in there. And, the local governments and citizens can leverage that. If you make contact with those folks, or if you're working for a utility, make contact with the local citizens and authorities and everything, and find out what they need, because quite often it's the utility folks that have lines of communication that they're bringing in with them, and they can call back and get the word out to the right people, not necessarily the utility itself, but they can, open a line of communication up that might not exist and those kind of things. We had to do it in Katrina. We've done it, did it in Isaac when I was working the system safety out of Mississippi for that impact into southeast Louisiana and those kind of things. So yeah, that's and watch out for floating piles of fire ants. Be very careful of that if you find yourself in the water, because people have been severely injured and even died from getting caught up in that stuff. Well, we got to take our last break. When we come back, we will talk about Iran and the Middle East and Biden's silliness over it and Kamala's too. We'll be right back with L. Todd Wood from CD Media on More War Monday here at Worldview Tube.
Nate. Hey, Will, good morning. So Israel and Hezbollah continue exchanging fire, and the United States providing a little bit more support for Israel last night, striking 15 targets in Yemen belonging to the Houthi rebels. President Joe Biden is again weighing in on how he thinks Israel should respond to Iran's massive ballistic missile attack earlier in the week. You may remember he cautioned Israel against striking Iran's nuclear facilities. Now he's saying the same thing about Iran's oil fields. Listen to this.
The Israelis have not concluded what they're going to do in terms of a strike. That's under discussion. I think if I were in their shoes, I'd be thinking about other alternatives than striking oil fields.
So Iran's Supreme Leader Ayatollah Ali Khamenei spoke before thousands yesterday. Well, he said that Iran will attack Israel again if Israel responds to Tuesday's attack. He also justified Hamas's atrocities on October 7th. Meanwhile, Israel continues targeting Hezbollah positions in Beirut, as you mentioned. Now, there are reports that Israel killed the presumed successor to Hassan Nasrallah in a Thursday airstrike, but neither the IDF nor Hezbollah have confirmed that. In southern Lebanon, Israeli ground forces continue their limited offensive. An airstrike in their support took out a Hezbollah command center inside a mosque this morning. Israel's also giving out evacuation orders in central Gaza. An overnight airstrike hit a Hamas command center located inside a school. Now, a report from the New York Times this morning, U.S. officials, according to this report, believe that Hamas leader Yahya Sinwar is still alive and still making critical decisions for the terrorist organizations. And according to this report, he is hoping that a regional war breaks out so that Israel's attention won't be so focused on Hamas. Rachel?
Thank you, Nate.
Welcome back to the Rob Maness Show on Worldview Tube. It's More War Monday, and my guest is the CEO of CD Media, L. Todd Wood. And we've been talking about a lot of things today, from the terrible hurricane response to Helena here inside the United States, to what's going on in Ukraine and the impacts, the interplay and the relationship between the terrible response and availability of resources and what we've done by giving a lot of our scarce resources over to that effort with Todd. And Todd, a lot to unpack in that little clip there, but when I was sitting on stage in Fayetteville behind President Trump, one of the things he did address was Biden not wanting the Israelis to hit the Iranian nuclear capability, and he said, "Well, that's crazy. Essentially, the biggest risk we have is nuclear weapons in the hands of the mullahs." I mean, they've proven that they will do anything. Look what they unleashed through Hamas on October 7th. Let there be no doubt that's an Iranian operation. There's no doubt about it, I hope, amongst the freedom-loving people of the world that believe the truth, and then in that clip there, now he's saying don't hit their primary funding source, the oil capability. Well, I was on the pre-debate show on Real America's Voice with Grant Stinchfield the other night, and for the VP debate, and the first thing I said was the Israelis don't need to listen to the United States; they need to hit the nuclear capability and the oil producing capability. Those are the two centers of gravity that in the short term will put the Iranians back on their heels and stop this stuff.
I agree with you. I am, however, not wanting the U.S. to get in a multi-front war in the Middle East. I think Israel can handle themselves. Obviously, they have been able to so far. And I'm the only caveat I would say is I don't want American troops in this war in the Middle East. We have enough to take care of at home, and I don't believe another Middle East war is good for the country at all. And we can support our allies, of course, but that should be done. But I just don't want another war to pop off and us drain our troops. Who knows what is in store for us here on the homeland, and we need a force structure here to protect our own forces. That's my opinion. And let me say one other thing. To take a step back real quick and just let me put something out. One of the guys I know that was helping here in Swannanoa has made multiple trips on his own dime, and he's not a very wealthy man at all. And he gave everything he has, and he lost his business because he's just throwing everything into this. His Venmo, if you want to send it out, is at Tippett's Dad, TIPPETSDAD. If you want to send him $5 and help replace what he's thrown out there. So that's my stance on Iran.
So at Tippett's Dad, TIPPETSDAD. I didn't say it, but in my appearance on Stinchfield the other night, that's exactly the same position I have. Is the United States has no business being involved in this operation. The Israeli forces are perfectly capable of conducting whatever operations they want to conduct against Iran or anybody else, well, really for that matter, in that part of the world. And what I'm concerned about is we haven't withdrawn Americans that are on the ground in some of these areas where they're vulnerable and they're taking rounds, in the middle of all this continuously almost. And I'm not talking about our ships being out and protecting shipping lanes. I'm just talking about, the troops on the ground in Iraq and Jordan and Syria, those kind of things. They're sitting ducks. They're sitting ducks still. We've already got some killed this year. I agree with you. We don't need to be involved in that other than to, support those guys. The folks in Israel have paid for capability that they're buying from American manufacturers, and it's part of our responsibility to make sure they get what they paid for and support them, and then defend our own troops, and that kind of thing. We don't need to be involved in any offensive operations whatsoever.
I'm really worried that they want a global war for multiple reasons: to stay in power, to make more money, to change the demographics on the ground in certain areas so that they can, acquire property and other assets. And we have to be very aware of this and do everything we can to shut this down, in my opinion.
Yeah, I mean, here's some stupidity. Breaking news to help Kamala in the Muslim-heavy Michigan. It looks like Biden has signed an executive order directing Treasury to freeze the bank accounts of Israeli settlers on the West Bank who respond to Palestinian attacks or protests. Biden-Harris has declared policy favoring Palestinian statehood. Can you believe that?
Well, he may gain a few Muslim votes, but he's going to lose Jewish votes.
The one city in the United States controlled by a Muslim majority, the mayor has already endorsed Donald Trump. I think that's in Michigan too.
Yeah, I mean, it's pretty obvious what they're doing. There's another story that Candace Owens has dug into on the background of Kamala Harris. I think people should look into that too, that she's lied about a lot of her heritage. And I think that's another big story, along with this Western North Carolina story, that really needs to get out before the election.
Absolutely. And we're going to stay on it. I appreciate you coming on. We got one question from the audience as we come to the end of the show here. Let's go ahead and take it. Shell, go ahead.
We have Leisha, sir.
Hi, thank you for taking my question. I hope I word this correctly. My clarity about money that we've already allocated, like we did to Lebanon, Israel, Ukraine, and that already being committed, was it too late, or could we have pulled back some to help in the hurricane relief? And does that money truly impact the initial, like the coordination, the boots on the ground right now, trying to go in and the search and recovery of these people in the backwoods? Like, how connected is that funding to the implementation of those plans of actions with the, say, National Guard and FEMA to the ground?
I'll answer that, Rob.
Because we're giving all this money to everybody else, but you're not helping the people.
Sure.
Right.
Go ahead, Tom.
I unfortunately think people need to, there's stages of grief here, right? And one of those is acceptance. And I think we need to accept the fact that the U.S. government is not working in our best interests. I don't think they give a hoot about these people. And it's not a mistake, or could we have made a better decision, or maybe we could get some of the money back and send it. They don't want to. This is and I'm about to write an article that in some ways this is the kind of first kinetic shots, because whether you die of a bullet or of starvation or of lack of medical care or lack of a rescue and exposure, it's the same result. So I just think that what this government is doing is insane, and people need to accept that and then act accordingly in this election to get rid of them.
Yeah, and I would just add that, on the money streams, quite often when you see these announcements like the one I played from Blinken, dollars haven't actually flowed. So yes, those could be stopped. It depends on where it's at in the process. So there's a potential to do that. But things like the transformers being sent to the Ukraine, and they're a scarce resource already. So now that we're short here, and as Todd said, they're projecting some parts to not have power for 7 months. Absolutely. Had those not been used and sent over there, would have had a direct impact, and will have a direct impact on the ability to recover effectively during this operation. Now, as far as the FEMA folks go, look, they're already playing it's a separate pot of money game with the $1 billion that they've spent on illegal immigrants and migrants in this country. And some of that, when you look into it, has been taken out of the emergency response fund. So don't buy into their lies. And that also would have had a direct impact on this operation. Now, I can't speak to the slow response of the governor and the National Guard and the active duty military forces. That's just poor leadership. And Todd, you can weigh in here. It doesn't matter. The money doesn't really matter, because all of that those machines and those people could be moving at a moment's notice as soon as they've had their 12 or 18 hours they needed to get their stuff together. Right, Todd?
If they'd have wanted to help these people immediately, they would have. Bottom line.
Exactly right. Well, man, thank you very much for coming on the show today. We're going to continue to do stories on this and get this information out, because you're right. We have to get this story out and get the truth out. I shudder to think how bad it really is. But in spite of that, we're going to keep telling this story, and we'll have you back. Tell folks how they can find you guys real quick again before I let you go.
CDM.press, put us in your daily scan. We're the new global wire service. We have 13 digital properties, a huge video presence that's growing. We are the place where you're going to get news that you're not going to get anywhere else, like this. So we're known for being early, but we're also very credible. We don't throw bull crap out there. We just put up verified news that no one else will print because they're told not to. So cdm.press, please put us in your scan. Thank you, Rob.
Thank you, sir. Appreciate it. We'll see you again soon. Well, tomorrow is Training Tuesday. Dinesh D'Souza will be here for the first half of the show to talk about his new movie, Vindicating Trump. And then Brian Trasher, who's been working with the United Cajun Navy and air operations out of Hickory, North Carolina, in that Asheville area and surrounding area, is going to come on to give us an update on what they've been doing and what they're seeing too, just to add to more factual information from Americans that are on the ground, that aren't part of the government. And that's what we're going to do here, is get the truth out. We're not going to be like the lying New York Times, who lied about the veterans that were on the stage with me and their questions in Fayetteville on Friday night. We're going to tell the truth, whether it hurts or not, because people deserve it and they need it in order to make good decisions. That's what this is all about. I'll see you tomorrow on Worldview 2.